Hi there, welcome once again to the Dukascopy TV studio. I'm Ben Jones. Alongside me to discuss a recap on his organisation Venture South is George Petty. George, once again, thank you very much for joining us in the studio.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's begin by having a quick reminder about your organisation. What are the main focuses? Where are your areas of expertise, and how does this impact the economy and create jobs?
Sure. So Venture South is a lending company, and we're lending specifically in the sector above microfinance, which can sort of be defined up to $2,000, and below the banks. And so in our sector, we're generally lending $2,000 up to, say, $50,000, $75,000. And this is a sector in the economy which is greatly overlooked. The banks really are having great difficulty lending in this space. In microfinance technology, the lending methodologies really is not serving that sector. This is the sector of the economy which has the most potential to grow, which is creating jobs, and which is really expanding the middle class. This is where you're, particularly in emerging economies, where there's so much business activity going on, but they're really lacking formal access to financing.
Okay, now can you outline for us a few examples of partnerships that you're currently in the process of looking at and how you're hoping that these will benefit you?
Sure. So we're working specifically in Colombia and the Philippines, and we've been talking with several different organizations in the solar space, also in low-income housing. As I meet people who are working specifically in these sectors these last few years, I notice that they're often raising financing, but they're not raising financing to improve their methodologies or their manufacturing base. What they're essentially doing is they're looking for financing so that the buyers can afford to buy from them. And that's something that a financial intermediary should be doing. So we're looking at partnerships with other organizations where we can essentially provide that financing. And just as in Switzerland or the United States, another country, where someone's going to buy a car and that car dealer is providing you that financing right away so that the buyer can afford to buy that car, I would like to do that same sort of thing with solar loans or with low-income housings, and in partnership with other organizations, so that it could be a package deal. The people who are looking to buy those products, we can provide that financing.
So what are your main sources of financing as you look into these other partnerships?
Sure. The financing that we've accessed over these years has sort of evolved. When we began, it was really sort of a closer network of socially minded investors, organizations such as Quadia Impact Investors and their network, contacts that I've had. And then it's grown. Sort of the institutional microfinance funds have begun to invest with us. And I see that really expanding. We're talking now with private equity firms to help us grow and to expand. So it's going to be increasingly institutionalized financing, and probably less individual financing. That we'll always have sort of a base of that, which are essentially socially minded impact investors and high net worth investors, and we'll grow more towards institutional funds. And these can be funds like the Symbiotics we have here in Geneva, Blue Orchard, and other. The Dutch, of course, have a lot of funds in this space. Locally, we're raising quite a bit of funds in local currency in both Colombia and the Philippines, and those tend to be locally sourced funds, one way or another coming from the government and other investors locally. So we're looking for both debt and equity to help us grow our portfolio and to expand this space.
Fantastic. George, once again, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. Do make sure you keep clicking back to Dukascopy TV, as we'll be bringing you plenty more updates and exclusive interviews. Bye for now.